My wife has always been my biggest supporter, but now that I made a huge financial mistake with our savings, she's questioning our entire marriage and I don't know if I can fix this. I've been with my wife, Jess, for a decade, and we were that couple that friends envied. You know, the kind who just got each other. We've been through highs, lows, job shifts, and even a move across the country for her work. And for the most part, she's been my rock, my support system through it all. I guess that's what makes this so hard. Because now, for the first time, I feel like I've crossed a line I can't come back from. And I honestly don't know if I can fix it. To give some context, I've always had this itch to start my own business. For years, it was just a dream I kept in the back of my mind. Like one of those things you say you'll do someday, but never actually expect to make happen. But recently, I thought, why not? Life is short, and honestly, I was starting to hate the grind of my 9 to 5. I felt stuck, like I was just going through the motions every day. Jess, knowing this, was the first to encourage me. She told me she'd support me, no matter what. Fast forward to a few months ago. I found an idea I thought had real potential, starting a small online store selling eco-friendly products. Sounds great, right? People are really into sustainable stuff these days, and I did my research, mapped out a business plan, the whole 9 yards. But here's where I messed up. I got too excited. Instead of starting small, I invested almost all of our savings into inventory, marketing, and a professionally designed website. Jess knew I was spending money, but I wasn't exactly clear on the numbers. Looking back, I cringe. I know I should have been more open with her, but I kept telling myself it would all pay off in the end. In my head, I was going to make it big and surprise her. It would be worth it. One of those trust me, this will all work out kind of things. But as you've probably guessed, it didn't work out. It's been 4 months since the website launched, and let's just say the eco-friendly market is way more competitive than I thought. My target audience wasn't there, the ads didn't convert, and my product wasn't standing out. I've barely sold anything, and the money is gone. Every last cent. And now, Jess knows. I can still picture the look on her face when I finally told her. We were sitting on the couch. She had her laptop out, probably catching up on emails, and I was sitting there, heart pounding out of my chest. When I told her, she didn't even say anything at first. She just stared at me. I think that hurt even more than if she'd yelled. She's not a yeller. Never has been. But in that silence, I could feel her anger, her disappointment, and honestly, her hurt. She finally said, I trusted you. I can't get those words out of my head. It's like a broken record, and I don't know if I'll ever stop hearing it. Since that night, things have been tense. She's barely talking to me, and when she does, it's clipped, cold. She's thrown herself into work, staying late and bringing home more than usual. Meanwhile, I'm here in this apartment that now feels like a stranger's home, wondering how I messed everything up so badly. I miss her. I miss us. I don't know what's worse, the shame of failing or the realization that she might never look at me the same way again. We used to laugh about small stuff, like who left the dishes in the sink or whose turn it was to take out the trash. Now, even the little things are weighted, tense. I can't even stand to hear her say my name because it sounds different, like there's a barrier there. Some days, I wonder if I'm being dramatic. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and we'll get through this like we always have. But there's this nagging voice in my head telling me this time is different. This isn't a small fight or a misunderstanding we can just laugh off. This is deeper, like a crack that goes straight through the foundation of what we built together. I'm not sleeping well. Most nights, I'm up late, pacing or scrolling through random forums, looking for answers, or maybe just some distraction. It's funny because I keep ending up on these advice posts on Reddit, wondering if maybe someone else out there has screwed up as badly as I have. Maybe that's why I'm here, telling strangers on the internet what I can't even say to my own wife. I don't know if anyone else has felt this way. It's like I'm watching my own life crumble, and I can't even bring myself to reach out for help. My friends would say I'm being ridiculous, that everyone makes mistakes and Jess will come around. But what if she doesn't? What if this is the one thing she can't forgive? I keep trying to tell myself that it's just money, that we can rebuild it over time. But deep down, I know it's not about the money. It's about trust. Jess trusted me with everything, and I let her down. And I don't know how to rebuild that. Update 1. It's been a few days, and things are complicated. Jess and I finally had a conversation, if you can call it that. I tried to apologize, to explain how I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. She listened, but she didn't say much. When I asked her if she still trusts me, she didn't answer. She just looked at me with this sad, almost defeated look. Some of you asked if I regret trying in the first place. Honestly, yes and no. I wanted to prove to myself, to her, that I could build something. But now I see how reckless it was. There's no excuse, and I know that. Jess has started staying over at a friend's place some nights, which I think is her way of getting some space. It's like she's testing a life without me in it, and I can't shake this sinking feeling that maybe that's where this is headed. I've thought about packing up and leaving to give her space, but I'm afraid that if I walk out now, I'll be sealing the deal on our marriage ending. She told me she's not ready to talk next steps yet. Part of me wants to push her to decide, but I know that would only make things worse. So here I am, waiting, hoping, and dreading what's coming next. I thought giving Jess some space would help, but it's just made things worse. She's still coming home some nights, but there's a wall between us. When she's here, we hardly say more than a few words, and when she's not, I'm left with the silence and all the what-ifs. I keep going back to that night, replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I could have said something different that might have made this easier on both of us. My best friend, Mark, came over yesterday to check on me. He's been my closest friend since college, the kind of guy who's always good for a laugh or some brutal honesty, depending on what you need. We talked for a while, and I told him everything. How I felt stuck, how I wanted something more, and how I ended up blowing it all. He didn't hold back, either. Told me flat out that I was an idiot for not talking to Jess from the start. But then he said something that hit me hard. You know, man, Jess doesn't care about money like that. She cares about honesty. You could have told her your plan and worked on it together, but now you've made her feel like a stranger in her own life. Hearing that stung, but it's true. Jess was always the practical one, the one who kept us grounded while I dreamed. I went behind her back, thinking I was sparing her worry, but in reality, I was just taking her choice away. And that's what hurts the most. Mark tried to be encouraging, though, saying I still had a chance if I could show her that I've changed. He even suggested I go see a therapist or join a group for people struggling with personal accountability. Something to show Jess I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm not really the therapy type, but honestly, I'd try anything at this point if it meant I could earn her trust back. I looked up a few support groups online last night, but even clicking on the links made me feel exposed. Admitting I failed is one thing, but talking about it with strangers? That's another level of vulnerability I'm not sure I'm ready for. But Jess is worth it. I keep telling myself that. I think that's part of what's breaking me down. I'm realizing how much I took her for granted, assuming she'd be there, no matter what. And now, all I see are the red flags I should have noticed sooner. The times I ignored her advice, dismissed her concerns, thinking I knew best. I always thought I was this strong, independent guy, but maybe I was just selfish. It's weird, but facing all this makes me feel like I don't even know myself anymore. I'm trying to keep up a normal routine, going to work, pretending everything's fine when people ask. But every time I open my mouth, it feels like a lie. I'll laugh at a joke or smile at a coworker, but deep down, all I can think about is Jess. I used to think I was the kind of person who could just move on from mistakes, but this one's sticking with me in a way I didn't expect. Last night, I finally broke. Jess was at her friend's place, and I just sat on our bed, looking around the room at all the reminders of our life together. The photos, the little notes we used to leave each other, the books she recommended I read. I didn't think it would get to me like that, but suddenly I was just done. I ended up sitting there, holding a picture of us from our wedding day, feeling more alone than I ever have in my life. I don't know if Jess is ever going to come back to me, not in the way we used to be. She's still around physically, but emotionally, she's so far away. And I have no one to blame but myself. Update 2. Thanks to everyone who commented on my last post. Some of you suggested that I tell Jess how I really feel, that I should open up fully, even if it means showing her the parts of myself I'm ashamed of. So, I tried. I told her I was scared, that I've always felt like I'm not good enough for her, and that maybe, in a twisted way, this was me trying to prove something to myself. She listened, but I could tell my words weren't reaching her. At the end, she just said, I don't know if I can keep doing this. She looked so tired, so defeated, and it broke something inside me. She told me she feels like she's been carrying the weight of our relationship alone, that every time I made a choice for us, I was really just thinking of myself. I asked if we could go to therapy together, but she shook her head and said she needed to figure things out on her own first. She's staying at her friend's place full-time now, and I feel like I'm watching my marriage slip through my fingers. The house is empty without her, and I don't know how to fix this anymore. It's strange how life can feel so normal and so foreign at the same time. I still go through the motions, making coffee, going to work, trying to stay busy. But everything feels muted, like I'm in some kind of fog. Every time I pass Jess's empty side of the bed or see her favorite mug untouched, it feels like a gut punch. I didn't realize how much of my life revolved around her until she wasn't here. After our last talk, I went to therapy. I think a part of me hoped it would be this instant solution, like I'd walk in, talk about my problems, and walk out with some magic fix. But, of course, it's nothing like that. The therapist, a guy named Dan, just listened as I rambled on about everything. My need to prove myself, the way I took Jess for granted, the guilt that's been eating me alive. He didn't say much, but when he did, it was like he could see right through me. Dan asked me a question I haven't been able to shake. Do you want to fix things for her, or for yourself? I didn't have an answer. I thought I was doing all of this to get Jess back, but now I'm starting to wonder if it's just about making myself feel better. Like I'm trying to erase the shame rather than truly change for her. It's uncomfortable, facing those parts of myself I'd rather ignore. Jess is still staying at her friend's, and I've noticed I'm starting to avoid going home too. I'll linger at work, grabbing coffee or chatting with coworkers, just so I don't have to walk into that empty apartment. It's like a ghost town. Our photos, our furniture, even our dog, Riley, who keeps looking at the door, waiting for her to come back. Riley's loyalty to her just makes it all feel worse. He's always been closer to Jess, and now he just looks at me like I'm the reason she's gone. Last night, I ran into an old friend from college. We grabbed a drink, and I ended up spilling everything, probably more than I should have. I told him about Jess, the money, the business idea gone wrong. He listened, but at one point, he just looked at me and said, "Do you even know what you want anymore?" And I realized I don't. I don't know what I want, what I'm doing, or even who I am right now. I used to be so sure of everything, and now it feels like my life is this mess I don't know how to clean up. Part of me wants to just pack up and leave, start over somewhere else. I've had those moments where I think, maybe Jess would be happier without me, that maybe I'm just dragging her down. But then I remember all the moments we've had, all the times she stood by me, and it feels like giving up would be the ultimate betrayal. I owe it to her, to us, to at least try, even if I don't know what trying looks like anymore. There's this quiet desperation creeping in. I'll catch myself checking my phone, hoping for a text from her, even just a hi. But there's nothing. She's keeping her distance, and I get it. She's been through enough because of me. But the silence is eating me alive. It's like this constant reminder of how much I've lost, how much I've messed up, and there's no escaping it. I wish I could just go back and do it all differently. I know that sounds cliché, but it's true. I keep thinking about all the little choices I made that led us here, all the times I put my pride over honesty. I wish I just talked to her, shared my insecurities instead of hiding behind this facade of knowing what I'm doing. But that's all hindsight now, isn't it? Now I'm left with the consequences, and I don't know if I can handle them. I'm scared to reach out again. I'm scared she'll finally tell me it's over, that there's no way back for us. But I can't just sit here and watch everything crumble, can I? Every day, I feel like I'm teetering on the edge, not knowing if I'll fall or if I'll find a way to climb back up. But if I don't do something soon, I know I'll lose her for good. Update 3. First off, thank you to everyone who's been commenting and reaching out. Some of you have been brutally honest, and I needed to hear it. A few people suggested I write Jess a letter, something that gives her space to read and process without the pressure of a face-to-face conversation. I spent hours on it last night, trying to get the words right, trying to express everything I haven't been able to say out loud. I left the letter in our apartment, along with the keys to our place, as a way of showing her that I'm not trying to hold her here if she doesn't want to stay. It was terrifying to leave that letter, knowing it might be the last thing I ever say to her. In it, I told her about the therapy sessions, about how I'm finally seeing the person I've been all these years and how much I want to change, not just for her, but for myself. I don't know if she'll read it, or if it'll make any difference, but I had to try. She deserves to know how sorry I am, how much I miss her. And if that means giving her the freedom to walk away, then I guess that's what I have to do. Now, it's just waiting. It's a strange kind of limbo, but it feels like the only way forward. The days after I left Jess, the letter have been surreal, like I'm floating through this weird purgatory where every second stretches into an eternity. I've replayed every word I wrote, every line where I tried to explain myself, wondering if I said too much or not enough. I don't know what I was expecting, a text, a call, maybe even her walking through the door. But there's been nothing, just silence. I keep going to therapy, and Dan's been helpful, though he doesn't pull any punches. He's asked me some hard questions about control, about why I kept Jess in the dark in the first place. The truth is, I wanted to be the provider, the guy who had it all together, who could make big decisions without needing to consult anyone. But now I see that all I did was push her away. I convinced myself it was strength, but it was really just insecurity, This constant need to prove myself? Last night, I hit a breaking point. I was scrolling through old photos of us on my phone. Our trip to the mountains, the night we stayed up until dawn just talking about nothing and everything. And there was this one picture. Jess was laughing, genuinely laughing, with her arm wrapped around my shoulder. It was like a punch to the gut because I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her that happy. Somewhere along the way, I lost the ability to make her smile like that, and the realization shattered me. I couldn't take it anymore. The waiting, the silence. So I called her. She answered, but her voice was different, guarded, careful, like she was talking to a stranger. I almost hung up, but I forced myself to speak. I told her I just wanted to know if she'd read the letter, if she'd thought about what I said. There was a long pause, and then she told me, yes, I read it. But I don't know if it changes anything. I felt my chest tighten. She went on to say that she appreciates my effort to change, but that it might be too little, too late. Her words were measured, cautious, as if she was walking on a tightrope between forgiveness and finality. She said she needs time to figure out if she can ever trust me again, and that she doesn't know if she's willing to take that risk. Every word cut deeper than the last, and I felt this strange mix of relief and heartbreak. Relief that she'd heard me, but heartbreak that she might still walk away. I tried to tell her how much she means to me, that I'm willing to do anything to make this right. But she stopped me. She said, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided you didn't need me. Her voice cracked on the last word, and in that moment, I realized how deep her hurt goes. I didn't just break her trust. I made her feel invisible, unnecessary. I was so focused on my own goals that I forgot she was part of this partnership too. After we hung up, I just sat there, staring at my phone. I felt hollow, like all the fight had drained out of me. I think a part of me always thought that Jess would forgive me, that she'd eventually come around. But now I'm not so sure. I'm starting to see that love isn't this automatic, unbreakable thing. It can fracture, and once those cracks start to show, there's no guarantee they'll ever heal. I went out for a walk, needing to clear my head, but every street, every cafe, every little detail seemed to remind me of her. I ended up at the park where we used to go on lazy Sundays, just sitting on the bench we'd claimed as ours, staring at the empty spot beside me. It hit me then that this could be my life from now on. A life without Jess, without the laughter and warmth she brought into it. And the thought made me feel like I was drowning. I've been spiraling since that call. I can't sleep, I can barely eat, and work feels like a distant obligation I can hardly focus on. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, hear her voice telling me she might not want me in her life anymore. I keep wondering if there's something, anything, I can do to fix this. But I'm terrified that the damage is done, that no amount of therapy or apologies will ever be enough to bring her back. People talk about rock bottom, but I don't think I ever understood what it really meant until now. This is it. This is the lowest I've ever felt, and there's no easy way out. I can't undo what I've done, and the person I've become feels like a stranger even to me. I keep thinking, if I just listened to her, if I'd just been honest, none of this would have happened. But it's too late for if only. All I have now are regrets, and this endless, aching silence. Update final. It's been 6 months since Jess and I had that conversation, and I wish I could say things turned out differently. I wish I could tell you that we worked it out, that I managed to fix things. But life isn't as neat as that. Jess moved out 3 months ago, officially. She said she needed space to find herself again, to rediscover the parts of her life that weren't tied to my decisions, my dreams. And as much as it hurt to let her go, I understood. I've learned more about myself in these past months than I have in years. Therapy forced me to confront some hard truths about who I've been and what I've done. I realized I'd built this idea of myself as someone who had to be strong, who had to succeed to be worthy of love. But in trying to prove my worth, I ended up making Jess feel like she didn't matter. It's a painful thing to admit, but I see now how much I put my ego above our relationship. Jess and I still talk occasionally, though it's mostly logistical stuff, selling the apartment, dividing up our belongings. Each call is a reminder of the life we built together and of the life we've lost. She sounds better now, lighter somehow, as if stepping away has given her a new lease on life. And while I'm happy for her, it also reminds me of how much I messed up. I kept hoping that time would heal things, that maybe Jess would come back once we both had time to process everything. But I'm starting to accept that sometimes love isn't enough. Trust is the foundation, and once that's broken, rebuilding it is a lot harder than I thought. Jess was my home, and without her, I'm still trying to figure out who I am and where I belong. The hardest part is the quiet moments, coming back to an empty place, knowing she won't be there waiting for me. I keep thinking about all the times I took her presence for granted, how I assumed she'd always be there, no matter what. It's humbling, really, to realize how deeply you can hurt someone without even knowing it. I've learned that love isn't about grand gestures or proving yourself. It's about being there, being honest, and making the other person feel seen and valued. And that's something I failed to do. A few friends suggested I start dating again, but the idea feels hollow. I don't think I'm ready, and I don't want to drag someone else into the mess I'm still sorting through. Jess deserves a partner who respects her, who listens and supports her without the need to control everything. And I guess I need to learn how to be that person, whether or not she's in my life. There's a lesson in all of this, one I wish I'd learned without losing her. Relationships are fragile, and once trust is broken, it's not something you can just patch up. It takes real work, real commitment, and the willingness to let go of your ego. I spent so much time trying to be the strong one that I forgot the strength it takes to simply be open and vulnerable. I'm still going to therapy, still working on myself. I want to believe that I can change, that I can become the kind of man who doesn't need to prove anything to feel worthy of love. Maybe one day, I'll meet someone who sees the person I've become rather than the mistakes I've made. But until then, I'm learning to live with the consequences of my choices, learning to accept that sometimes, all you can do is apologize and hope that someday, you'll forgive yourself. Thank you to everyone who's followed along, who's given advice, even those who called me out. It's hard to be honest about these things, but sometimes you need to face the hard truths to really grow. And while it didn't turn out the way I wanted, I hope Jess finds the happiness she deserves. She was the best part of my life, and losing her has shown me the kind of man I need to become. Only time will tell if I can get there, but for now, all I can do is try.